Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Talkin' Ball podcast. Today, we are here with episode 7 and we are ready to talk some ball. I am Jack, joined by
I'm Keaton.
Keaton. How are you?
Doing awesome. Can't wait to talk some ball.
As always, we've got another fun show planned today. We're going to kick it off with a few questions from our listeners, our loyal listeners. This first one is from Twitter. It's from Jackson Teese, I think, is how you say it. He said, what would the Thunder look like today if Kevin Durant stayed in 2016? Um, I mean, that's a hard thing to know exactly what we look like now. Like, is a question asking what we look like if he stayed, like if he was even on the team now? Because I don't know. But I mean, I'd like to think we have at least a championship or two if he stayed. Um, I mean, in the short future after he would have made that decision, I mean, the team would have probably looked like Russ, Oladipo, KD, Horford, Sabonis would have maybe stuck around for a while. Sabonis might still be on our team now, and might have he might have become a star on our team. So it's really hard to say what exactly the team would look like now. I mean, odds are none of the players that are on our team right now would still be on our team. But what do you think?
That's what I was gonna say is because, like you said, we would have had Oladipo, Horford, Sabonis in the lineup with KD and Russ. That would have been awesome. But it might be kind of a blessing in disguise that he did leave because, like you also said, we probably wouldn't have the players that we did now. And who's to say that we would have for sure even gotten a title competing with the Warriors dynasty that they had going to? Like, of course, we were close in 2016 with the 3-1 lead and stuff. Sorry to bring that up. But I don't know. It's hard to say if we'd have gotten over the hump just because uh I don't know. It feels like to overthrow the Warriors dynasty, the stars would have had to align perfectly. And so I think that um things happening the way it did wasn't easy at first, but I think seeing it through, it'll all end up for the better. But to answer the question, I think the Thunder might have a championship or maybe two if KD would have stayed, but who's to say who would be on the team currently? And like the outlook today might look more grim.
Right. No matter, I mean, we could woulda, shoulda, coulda all we want, but we can't live like that because, like, the reality of the situation is I'm very content with where the team's at right now, and the future looks bright. So I'll take it. You got our next question for us?
Yeah, our next question comes from Sydney, and she asks us to pick a team in the NBA that will shock us and exceed the expectations for the season, or we can choose a team that will disappoint us the most, or not disappoint us, but disappoint their expectations. So, Jack, do you have a team in mind?
My team that might surprise some people are the Phoenix Suns. Um, I mean, we're gonna get more into predictions a little later about how we think teams are going to do. But I think a lot of people are writing off the Suns because of how they performed last season. Um, they got swept in the playoffs. What were they, the sixth seed? But I think they'll be a little higher on the standings, a little more successful in the playoffs, and a little higher in the win totals this year. I think their main thing they were missing was a little continuity. At first, it seemed like they kind of threw a bunch of players together. They went and tried to get max superstars and then kind of filled out the rest of the roster with whatever they could from vet minimums, and then expected them to just go out there and succeed. Another thing they were lacking was a solid ball handler. Now they have Tyus Jones and Monte Morris. Last year they were Having Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, guys like that, bring up the ball that aren't used to doing that, but are more um, like guys that can catch and shoot or create off the catch for themselves, stuff like that. But with having a better facilitator, I mean, Tyus Jones is one of the best assist to turnover ratio guys in the league, and having Monte Morris behind him is great too. And I just feel like they have a better surrounding cast around their stars this year. And so I'm excited to see their improvements with more experience together and with a little bit better complementary players to fill in the gaps that they were missing last year.
All right, so Jack picked the Phoenix Suns to exceed expectations. I'm gonna go on a different note and go with a team that I think has a potential to disappoint expectations, and this could age horrendously. But I'm gonna say the Memphis Grizzlies could disappoint. And my reasoning for that is that they haven't played really together in a while. Like they've had injuries and suspensions that have set them back, especially last year. Let's see, pulling it up right here. Last year they achieved 27 wins. Expectations for them this season set by FanDuel is 47 and a half wins. I think that they're going to come up short of that, and I think that it could be by a considerable margin. Considering that last year they just really didn't have a chance to build any continuity or experience as a team. So I think their inexperience as a unit will hurt them. Now, if you look back to before the injuries, before the suspensions, they were the 2 seed in the West at one point, with Jaw playing out of his mind. So I think they could get back to that for sure. That's why I think that this has potential to age poorly. But I think to answer the question, they have a huge potential to disappoint.
All right. Thank you all for the questions. We'll be asking for more questions in the future. And so it's always fun to hear from you guys and answer some things you guys have been wondering. So we're going to get into our next segment. Now, to introduce this, we kind of wanted to preview the season a little bit by offering our predictions of what's going to happen throughout the league this upcoming year. As the season's approaching, we thought this week would be a good time to do that. Um, so on each of the three episodes, we're going to predict a different aspect of the league this week. So today we're going to start out with um, predicting our the team standings for both conferences and how the playoffs are going to unfold, as well as the over under lines, whether we think they're going to go over or under their betting odds lines that were set. So, um, and then later in the week, we'll predict other things like awards and the all NBA teams, all defensive teams, all stars, and stat leaders for the NBA and the Thunder. So while we are a Thunder podcast, I think it's important that we cover the league as a whole, just because um, it's fun as basketball fans, and it's important to know what's going on around us as if we care about the Thunder. So, um, Keaton, let's start off with our over unders. So, these lines are all from FanDuel. Um, no sponsorship there. It's just we had to use someone's line, so we use FanDuel's. Um, so we're gonna start out with the East. Um, the first line is the Atlanta Hawks at 35 and a half. Now, last year they had 36 wins. So, did you go over or under for the Atlanta Hawks?
I'm going under 36 or 35 and a half wins for the Atlanta Hawks. Do we want to get into my reasoning for that, or do you want to give
Yeah,
yours?
yeah.
Okay. So when I think about the Atlanta Hawks, um, last year having 36 wins, I try to think, do I think they're going to be better or worse than last year? And really, one of the major changes that I see, obviously, they got Zachary Ricochet with the number one pick in the draft. Um, However, one of the major transactions they made in the offseason was trading away DeJounte Murray. And they really didn't trade him for, I mean, they traded him for Larry Nance, Dyson Daniels, and I think Cody Zeller, um, which I don't really
Don't
see.
write off Cody Zeller now.
Yeah. Uh, I don't really see them being uh, huge difference makers. I didn't really think that they were that for the Pelicans. Um, so I don't think that they are going to fill DeJounte's shoes at all. And so I don't think that they're going to be much worse than they were last year, but I do think that they will fall below 36 wins.
You gave that a little French twist there. DeJounte.
DeJounte.
I went over 35.5 wins for the Atlanta Hawks. I was just kind of, when I was making my standings predictions in the East, it's kind of a matter of like someone has to win games, and I just think the Hawks are going to be better than some of these other lower end teams um, in the East. And they they won 36 last year. I don't think they got much worse. They did lose DeJounte, but I just don't think that he wasn't a great fit in Atlanta anyways. While he's a good player, I just don't think him and Trey were meant to be together, which is why they didn't last very long together. And now I think without him, Trey will be able to be a more successful version of himself, and they're kind of more complementary players around him. And so it'll be cool to see what Risa Shea can do. But um, yeah, I think they'll go slightly over.
Ricochet.
Dejounte Risa Shea. Okay. Next up is the Boston Celtics. Their over under is 58.5. And last year they won 64 games. So I went over for them. I mean, they lost pretty much nobody. No offense to Svi Mikhailuk, but uh yeah, I just have no reason to believe they're gonna like fall off in any way other than my only hesitancy is Porzingis is gonna miss a good amount of time. Um, but I think they have plenty of pieces to step in for him and still get over that 58.5 mark. They might not reach the 64 mark with Porzingis missing a chunk of time. But I think with their I mean, five guys you could argue to be all stars, like they'll be just fine to be another real threat in the league again this year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the over. I think they're going to be in an absolute doo-doo Donkey Kong Eastern Conference that is going to be absolute doggy. And so I think that they will easily pick up the 58.5 wins. Um, Considering last year 64, I think that they'll pass 58.5 pretty comfortably. We can move to the next team.
Yeah. Next is the Brooklyn Nets. Their over-under is 18.5. Last year they won 32 games, but this offseason they made a drastic move that kind of signaled to the rest of the league that they are embracing the tank. They're ready to lose games because they were able to acquire their own picks back, so they have motivation to lose games. And they traded their star player, Mikal Bridges. So I think they're going to go under 18.5. I think they're going to be towards the bottom of the East, and typically the bottom of the East wins less than that amount of games. So I think they're going to be bad because they want to be bad. They still have some solid role players on the team, but I think if they're helping them win games, they'll show no hesitancy to shut those guys down or trade them away.
I would agree with them being bottom of the East. However, I'm still going to hedge my bet by going over here just because 18.5 is still pretty low in the grand scheme of the NBA. Like you said, the bottom of the Eastern Conference typically does get less than 18, with the Wizards getting 15 and the Pistons getting 14 last year. However, as you also mentioned, they're still kind of holding on to a lot of pieces that I think can still give them some and it can make them a formidable opponent. And so I think that they will pick up a few wins that they don't necessarily want towards the beginning of the season, which will lead them falling right around that 20 mark is kind of where I think that they could end up.
Okay. Next is the Chicago Bulls, 27.5. Where'd you have them?
Let's see. Chicago, I'm going to take the over 27 and a half. I think that they have half committed to hitting a reset button. They still have a lot of their solid pieces. So I think that they're going to find themselves pretty comfortably in that over range. I think, like I already had mentioned, how bad the East is. As you said, somebody's going to have to win, and Chicago's going to pick up some of those extra wins. I think that they'll be in between where the line is at 27 and a half and where they were last year at 39. I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, I have the over as well. They won 39 last year. And yes, they lost DeRozan, but I think they have enough other solid pieces to get over that 27.5. So next is the Hornets at 29.5. Last year they won 21. I picked their over as well. I think a lot of their struggles in recent years have just been due to well, not that they're a great team, but they had a lot of injuries. And I think I'm going to bet on a healthy Hornets season this year. So I think they have solid pieces with LaMelo and Mark Williams and Miles Bridges, and um, I just think another case of there are teams in the East that I think are going to be worse than them. So I'm going to go with their over.
I am going to take their under here just because I don't have any faith in the Hornets from what I've seen the past few years. Now they have moved on from their coach. They brought in a new coach, which I've seen a few clips on Twitter, and he seems like a really uh, fun guy to play for. So I think that they will win more than last year. They won 21 last year, but I don't see them quite getting to 30. So I'm going to take the under 29 and a half.
Okay. Next, we have the Cavs, 48.5. Last year, they won 48. So a lot of these, like this one, I think can go either way. Um, I'm just going to take their under, probably just barely, but I just think other teams in the East have improved more than they did this offseason. They didn't really do a whole lot to get better, in my opinion. So I think they'll be right around that mark again.
Right. I think the biggest thing that they probably did in the offseason was re-sign uh, Donovan Mitchell to a huge extension. So I am going, oh, and I guess Jared Allen, huh? So I'm going to take a Cleveland over here, over 48 and a half. They got 48 last year, as we mentioned. Um, kind of stayed the same as far as roster goes. They dealt with some injury last year between Allen and Mobley. It was kind of hard to keep them both healthy at the same time. But it's kind of a back and forth to me, but I'm gonna take their over.
Okay. Next is Detroit, the Pistons. Last year they won 14 games, but this year their over-under set at 24.5. So what do you think?
Uh, Oddly enough, they're gonna find a way to win more than 24 and a half games. So I'm gonna take the over. I don't like the Pistons. I think their front office is a very questionable front office. Um, However, with the offseason that they had, just kind of bringing in random guys, like random win now guys, um, combined with one of the youngest teams, they're gonna find a way to be over 24 and a half. 24 and a half is really low.
The thing about the Pistons, I don't think they've won 25 games in like 7 years. And nothing about their roster this year tells me that this is the year. So I'm going to go with the under here as well. They were pretty historically bad last year. Yes, they signed some guys that makes it look like they want to win, but I think those were more moves of just nobody wants to lose a record amount of games in a row. So they needed some sort of spacing. Um, which they got a little bit in Tim Hardaway and Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris. while I don't know if those are the moves I would have made, they just didn't want to set any more losing records, I think. So they kind of filled their weakness there. But I still don't think that they're going to get over that 24.5 mark that they just haven't seemed to be able to do in a long time. Um, Next up is the Pacers, set at 47.5. Now, last year they won 47 games. Um, I took their over here because I think they were a lot better after they acquired Pascal Siakam, and they're only going to get better from here. So I think that 47 mark last year that they were able to achieve while not even having Siakam on the roster for the full season, um, and then having that deep playoff run, I think they're just going to get even better from here and get over that 47.5 mark this year.
I completely agree with you with the over here. I think that they are one of the most impressive teams in the league on offense. Halliburton is a elite distributor, and they're also a great defensive team with kind of Miles Turner being a good defensive anchor for them. So I think they are going to find themselves over their total from last year, which is 47.
Okay, and then the Heat at 44.5. What you got there?
I'm going to take the under. Um, this was kind of a shot in the dark for me. I don't really know much about the Heat. I don't really like the Heat, so that's why I'm going under here.
You just don't like them. They
Right.
they were at 46 last year. I took their over. I think it'll be very close though, and you could go either way here. I don't think they got worse this offseason, but I don't think they got a whole lot better either. So I think that's a good line, but I'll barely take their over. The Milwaukee Bucks are next at 50.5. Last year they won 49, so I took their over here. I think they'll be towards the top of the East again, and with a full um, season of Doc Rivers coming in, I think they'll be um, just have more continuity. I think Gary Trent was a big addition for them to get on the minimum, and I think they'll be able to barely get over that 50.5 mark.
I'm gonna go under, and I am going to go um, with the under because I just don't really believe in their depth. I like Bobby Portis coming off the bench for sure. Like you mentioned, Gary Trent Jr., maybe Pat Connaughton, but besides that, on their roster, I don't really see anybody that excites me. Um, Plus, their starting lineup right now is slated to have Brooke Lopez, Torian Prince, and Chris Middleton accompanying Dame and Giannis, which I just not in love with. Definitely not in love with that. So I'm gonna take their under. I don't think it's gonna be much under, but I would have them in the high 40s.
Okay, next is the Knicks at 53.5. Last year they won 50. So what'd you go on that one?
Now, this is one I'm going to nuke the over 53 and a half wins. I think the Knicks got extremely um they got a lot better. They got a lot better this offseason with the additions of Mikal Bridges. Um and I mean just having some of the continuity of getting OG back, having Brunson, Mitchell Robinson hopefully being healthy, Julius Randle hopefully being healthy. Because I mean they had a remarkable season last year, and for a lot of that, Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson um, were unavailable. So obviously they did have Hartenstein. I wonder who took him off their hands, but at least they'll have some of those guys back last year. And then you just got an all-time workhorse in Josh Hart. Um, I love their roster, and I think that um, they're going to knock 53 and a half out of the ballpark.
Yeah, I also took the over. I don't know if I'm knocking it out of the ballpark, but their center depth is a little concerning just because it is unclear whether Mitchell Robinson's going to be healthy, especially at the beginning of the season. And we did take Hartenstein away from them. But other than that, their roster is great. They have a ton of wing depth and love their guards. Obviously, Brunson, I think, is going to have an amazing year. So I think they'll be up there with the Celtics. So I'll take their over.
I'll make a bold prediction here, to kind of quantify my knocking it out of the ballpark. I'm gonna say the New York Knicks get over 57 wins.
Wow.
So that's knocking it out of the ballpark by saying that they'll get 4.5 wins over there, over under.
I would take that under, I think. But
I think most people would. I think that's probably what makes it bold, but that's why we're a fun podcast.
all right, next up, Orlando Magic, 48.5. Now, last year they won 47. I'm going to take their under here, just barely. I think the top of the East is a lot stronger than it was last year. Um, just with improved teams like Philadelphia and New York and Milwaukee having hopefully a healthy season with a more continuity, and Cleveland's up there too, and obviously Boston. But I just think they're barely going to get that under. While I do think they're still going to be a solid, maybe even an improved team in the advanced metrics, but I think they'll be right around that 47-48 mark.
I'd agree with you on the under for Orlando. Barely, like you mentioned. But a huge problem for me watching the Magic play the Cavs in that first round of the playoffs last season was uh, their floor spacing and their shooting just wasn't really there for me. I mean, it wasn't there for them either, but it was um, kind of alarming that they have a lot of great players, obviously, like Banchero, and I mean, Suggs is a great player as well, on top of others. But with nobody to space the floor for them, I found it really kind of hard to watch their offense operate. Now, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is obviously a huge addition in the offseason, but I don't see him alleviating um, that entire issue for them. Harris does not move me off the bench. He does not move me at all. So I'm going to go under 48 and a half, barely. Give me 45, 46 wins for the Magic.
Okay. Philadelphia, 52 and a half. Last year they won 47. So what'd you pick this year?
I'm going to go under, but barely as well. My only reason for taking the under here is question marks on can they stay healthy. I think the way their roster is constructed, it's a great roster. Obviously, very exciting pairing Paul George with Joel Embiid, with Tyrese Maxey, with a ton of good role players, I think, that can really help them win a lot of games for sure. My biggest question mark with the Philadelphia 76ers is when is the last time Joel Embiid has had a full season of great health? When's the last time Paul George has had a full season of great health? Or played like, which I don't have the stats in front of me, but I would guess that Joel Embiid and Paul George both haven't played like 70 plus 75 games in a long time. Um, that would just be my guess from the outside looking in, but I don't think that they're going to be I don't it's hard for me to predict that this next season is just going to be an outlier and that Embiid and George will both be healthy. I don't think that they have incredible depth. I mean, um, Andre Drummond, the backup center for Philadelphia, I believe. So if Embiid goes down, uh, I don't know, kind of worry about the 76ers a little bit that they won't be able to hit that mark. That 52 and a half mark just seems a tad high. Give me 50 wins for the 76ers. What about you?
I took the over. Um, I think just people aren't talking enough about that big three they built. PG, Maxi, Embiid. I mean, that's scary. Just as being a fan of a different team in the NBA. I mean, um, I think those three, if they are healthy, can be really good. And they sign a lot of solid role players to complement them. And I think this will be a really successful team this year if they can stay healthy. So I took their over. Next is the Raptors at 30.5. Last year they won 25, and I took their over here because unlike a lot of other teams projected to be near the bottom of the East, I think the Raptors have some like notable guys on their team that can win you some games. They have Scotty Barnes, they have Emmanuel Quickly, guys like that. They have, I mean, even role players. I mean, RJ Barrett, um, Jakob Poeltl, like guys like that. That other teams like Washington and Chicago and Brooklyn and Detroit and teams like that just don't have as many solid, like respectable players like the Raptors do. So I think they'll get over that 30.5 mark.
Yeah, I would agree for the exact reasons that you said. They are unlike some of those other tanking teams because they still have really solid players on their roster, despite losing Jonte Porter.
And then the last East team is the Wizards at 20.5. And last year they won 15 games. So I'm going to take their under again because I don't think they did anything to make me think they're going to be any better, especially since they traded away their best player, Denny Avdia. Um, I just don't think trading away your best player will get you six more wins the next season. And I don't think they acquired anyone that's going to really help them do that. And I don't think they want to win. So I think they'll be right back down there near the bottom.
I'm going to take their over. Um, my main reason for taking their over is I think that they have a solid team with Jordan Poole, Kuzma, and then the signing Valanciunas, I think is which is odd because I agree that they don't want to win games. So if you look at them, the likelihood of them winning over 20 and a half when you consider their situation, it seems like it should be an under. Their roster is where I say, okay, I can see Valanciunas winning them. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth, but I could see Valanciunas winning them over 20 and a half games. Um, yeah, and I don't think that if they get over, I think it's probably going to be because they got 21. So I'm gonna reluctantly take the over there.
All right, let's move out west. We're going to kick it off with the Dallas Mavericks. They are projected to win 49.5 games. Last year they won 50, and I'm gonna take their over. I think they got better this offseason. They signed Klay Thompson. They were at their best near the end of last season after acquiring PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, which allowed them to make a finals run. And so I don't even think that 50 win mark from last year is reflective of how good they were near the end of the season. I think they're a better team than that, and I have no reason to think that they won't be next year as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on the over. I'm gonna disagree on them getting a lot better this offseason with offseason acquisitions. I don't think Clay Thompson, Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes moves the needle that much for them. I think the loss of Derek Jones Jr. Uh, I I like the loss of Tim Hardaway for them. I think that that does make them better. But Derek Jones Jr. specifically, I think that that's going to hurt them a little bit. Where I do think that they're going to be considerably better than last year is just the playoff experience that they gained. I mean, they had a long playoff run. They're going to be returning like Derek Lively, who obviously had an amazing playoff. So I think that he's going to come back a really improved player after this offseason. So I do think that they're going to be considerably better than last year. Um, Now, I'm not saying that the additions of Klay Thompson, Quentin Grimes, Najee Marshall hurt them by any means. So I would say that they're going to get over 49 and a half, and I'm going to say that they're going to get over 49 and a half by a few games. Like I'm going to put them at like 53.
All right. What do you have on the Denver 51 and a half? Last year they had 57.
So this one was back and forth. I actually just changed this one maybe 2 minutes ago. So I was under on the Denver Nuggets 51.5, but I changed the over, and here's why. I think obviously losing Contavious Caldwell-Pope in the offseason hurt, and that was going to be kind of my reason for them dropping off a little bit, as well as just their depth isn't anything to write home about. However, when I look at their over under 51.5, that's nearly 6 games less than what they won last season, 57. I don't see them dropping by 6 games necessarily. And I mean, they still have the multi-time MVP in Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, um, MPJ, um, on top of others. So I think that they're still going to get above that 51.5 mark.
Yeah, I agree. I had the over. I think while they might take a hit, I think there's no way they're taking that big of a hit. I don't think KCP wins you an extra 6 or 7 games. Um, so I think just the fact that they have the best player in the league on their team, that'll get them over 51 and a half. And they have obviously other solid players around him as well. So next up is Golden State, 43.5. Last year they won 46. So I'm going to take their over. Um, I don't think they're going to fall off by 3 games from last year. While some people may think Klay Thompson is a loss that'll hurt them enough to bring them under that mark, I think they did enough to replace what they lost with Klay Thompson by adding solid role players. They immediately got Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, and DeAnthony Melton on their roster. And I think those three can contribute a lot. And while none of them may be as good as Klay Thompson, just adding that depth can go a long way. If you look at their roster, they're like 11, 12, maybe even 13 deep of like solid guys you can trust to put out on the court. So even if they struggle with some injuries, some guys not playing as much, or a guy struggling or not fitting well, they have a lot of guys that they can roll out there and trust. Um, and even if they need to roll out Lindy Waters as the 14th man, we did it last year and won a bunch of games. So um, yeah, what'd you take for the Warriors?
I would agree. This is another one that went back and forth for me. But I ended up agreeing with you for the exact same reasons you stated. I don't think the loss of Klay Thompson warrants a 3 game drop. I think they're going to be pretty similar uh, to last year, adding Buddy Hield. Like, honestly, I don't really see Buddy Hield as too huge of a fall off from Klay Thompson at all at this stage in their careers. Um, like, I'm not talking prime Klay Thompson. Um, I hate the addition of Kyle Anderson to any team. He's one of my least favorite players in the NBA on the court. Um, I
Oh,
don't really think
I
that
didn't know
that
you had this opinion.
yeah. I think he moves so slowly and unorthodox that it's a little painful to watch. And that's my only reason. I'm sure he's a great guy. Kyle, if you're watching the VOD, forgive me, but I'll still take your teams over Kyle.
What are you taking for Houston? 43 and a half. Last year they won 41 games.
This is another one that's really back and forth for me, but I'm gonna end up leaning with their under. Yeah, I'm gonna end up leaning with their under. Um, it's gonna be a competitive West. If you're gonna want to, if you're gonna want to eat, you're gonna have to be a big dog. And I don't think that the Rockets are necessarily big dog status at this point. I think all signs point to them being better than they were last year for sure because they're a young team, they're picking up experience similar to the Thunder. They've got good vets like Van Vliet, Dylan Brooks, etc. Cool. You can be a better team and still win less games. And that's what I think that they're going to do. Um, just because of how competitive the West is this year. So I'm going to take under for the Rockets.
Yeah, and I went under as well. While I think the Rockets are going to be better, they have a bunch of young guys that have developed, and they were playing their best basketball towards the end of last year. I think Reed Shepherd will be great. Um, I just think that the West has too many teams that are supposed to be really good, and have a lot of talent. And I don't think they're on the level of a lot of those teams yet. While I think they will be in the future, they just aren't yet. And so while I was making my predictions, I was like, oh, 43 and a half, that seems like they'll get more than that. But then when you look right into it, and it's like, well, I think this team's going to win more than them, and this team's going to win more than them. So not everyone can win 45 games in the West. So I think they're going to go under by a little bit, probably be right around where they were last year. Next up is the Clippers at 39 and a half. Last year they won 51 games, but they lost Paul George this offseason. Um, I'm gonna go with their over still. I just think 39 and a half is really low. I don't think they'll be much over, but I think I don't think they'll drop off by 12 plus games. Assuming Kawhi Leonard's healthy, I mean, we know he won't play the entire season, but hopefully he plays enough. I think they'll be able to get over that 39 and a half mark just by having him and Harden and a few other solid role players as well.
I completely agree. I think a 12 game drop off is a pretty harsh prediction for this line. Like you said, I think that it's not going to be much over that line, but I still see them being above a 500 team, looking at their team on paper. As I mentioned when we talked about Dallas, I think the Clippers getting Derrick Jones Jr. is a pretty big uh, get, kind of filling Paul George's shoes. Now, let me be clear, Derrick Jones Jr. does not fill Paul George's shoes completely, like on the offensive end or even completely on the defensive end, but he is a solid defender. And I don't think the Clippers necessarily need another guy that's going to go out and score lights out. So I think because they've got guys like Harden, Kawhi, other players that can do that. So I think they'll be a 41 team, 41 uh win team at least. Um, which I even think, like, obviously Kawhi's health is a question, is a huge question mark the past few seasons. But I think that the Clippers could be a potential surprise team. I'm not necessarily going to predict that as my surprise team, but I think that they could surprise some people.
Yeah. But as Thunder fans, we want them to have their under because we own that pick. So it would be great if they could win somewhere in the 30s or less. But
Absolutely.
okay. Next up is the Lakers. Their over under set at 43 and a half. Last year they won 47 games. So where do you think they'll be at this year?
I'm gonna go over for the Lakers. Kind of for the same reasons we mentioned for um maybe similar to the Warriors, where well, I don't know. I don't think that that's necessarily applicable. Let's just go with I think the Lakers will be over 43 and a half. Their win total was 47 last year. I don't really see anything that happened to them over the offseason that would suggest a downfall of more than 4 games. Maybe you could argue for the West being more competitive this year, but with the huge addition of Bronny James, I think that they are going to kidding. But no, with LeBron and AD, I'm always going to think that they can make something happen as long as they play. So, um, give me the over 43 and a half.
Yeah, I went over as well just because while they won 47 last year, I just don't have any reason to believe that they're going to drop off by 4 plus games. While I wish they added more in the offseason for their sake. And like you said, you could argue other teams around them got stronger while they didn't. But I just think LeBron is going to will them to the play in at least. And I don't, I think they'll get over that mark. So next is Memphis, a team we talked about a little earlier, so we can kind of cover them quickly. Their line set at 47 and a half. Last year, they won 27 games due to a lot of injuries, specifically Jaw and Marcus Smart, guys like that. But I went over here. Um, I think they're gonna get back to a really successful team. Now, before Jaw was hurt, they were like a 55 win team, somewhere around there, maybe even more. I don't remember. But I don't think they're going to get that high, but I think they'll barely get over this 47.5 mark. Um, we just still haven't even seen this team fully together. Um, and I think they have a lot of talent on their roster that'll be able to win them a lot of games. And I think they'll be a really successful defensive team.
This is one of the teams that I probably couldn't disagree more as far as the talent on the team. I think that the talent on Memphis outside of four players, maybe I think it's pretty abysmal. I'm pretty low on Memphis. Now, I'm pretty high on them in my standings predictions just because kind of hedging my bet with the line a little bit. But when you look at their depth, okay, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bain, Jaron Jackson, cool, awesome. But then you look starting Zach Edey at center potentially. No. Gigi Jackson coming off the bench, I actually do like him, but Vince Williams doesn't really move me. Santi Aldama doesn't move me. Scottie Pippen Jr. doesn't move me. John Conchar doesn't move me. Jake LaRavia doesn't move me. Mamadi Diakite doesn't move me. None of those. Oh, okay. I do like Brandon Clark. Um, but like the players that I listed that I like, maybe Vince Williams, Brandon Clark, Gigi Jackson. Oh, also Luke Kennard doesn't really move me. Yeah, but those players don't scream what's the line? 47 and a half win
What if I
supporting.
told you Luke Kennard was second in the league in 3-point percentage last year?
Um
That change your mind?
no.
Okay.
Um it doesn't change my mind. Because I think that that's probably what's known as Luke Kennard's redeeming quality is his three-point shooting, for sure. But it just doesn't scream overall the supporting cast of a team that's going to get 47 and a half or more than 47 and a half wins. So I'm gonna go with the under there. Um, which let me say something on top of that is I'm gonna go with the under 47 and a half for the Grizzlies considering that they stay healthy um and well behaved. Like health is for sure a factor when you look at Jaron Jackson. He's kind of struggled with injuries, Marcus Smart a little bit, Desmond Bain a little bit, but like um John Morant, like he needs to get his mind right. And so if if one or more of those things that I just mentioned happen, like health problems or discipline problems, then this could be that's why I think that they're potentially the most disappointing team in the league. All to say that if they're fully healthy and disciplined, I'm still going to take the under 47 and a half.
I think as you were listing their roster there, I hear a lot of good depth there, but we can agree to disagree there.
Let's let's go into that a tad and it's I mean it's okay to disagree here, but like let me name a few players who moves you.
All of
At
them. I'm moved. All the guys you said don't move you, I'm pretty moved by them. I think
You cannot convince me that John Conchar moves you.
okay, I don't think John Konchar's much of a factor here. I don't think he'll really be in the rotation, but I think that's the starting lineup of Ja, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson, and then whoever you want to slide at center, whether it's Edie at first, see how he looks, or maybe slide Jaren back to the five and start Brandon Clark or Gigi Jackson or something like that. And then you also have off your bench, you have Gigi and Brandon Clark and Luke Kennard and Jake LaRavia and Vince Williams. That's a solid five right there. Those are all pretty young guys that well, not all of them are young, but the young guys are promising, and the vet guys have specific skills they bring to the table, like Luke Kennard's shooting and Brandon Clark's size. And I think if they stay healthy, that's a deep team that brings a lot of different talents and skill sets that can contribute to a winning team.
Yeah, we can agree to disagree on the Memphis Grizzlies and move to the Timberwolves. What do you got for the Timberwolves?
Timberwolves, their line's 52 and a half. Last year they won 56, and I'm slamming that over. I have no reason to believe they're going to drop off by four or more games. I think they're going to be better this year. Maybe not better than 56 wins, but just better as a team in general. If they can stay healthy. I mean, that 56 was with Cat missing a lot of time last year. Um, I just think they're going to be a solid contending favorite towards the top of the West once again.
Couldn't agree more on the Timberwolves. I think that they're potentially my most confident over
Yeah.
to this point. Like 52 and a half seems incredibly low to me after reaching the Western Conference Finals and getting 56 wins. I think the only argument you could make is, like I said before, just the more competitive Western Conference. But besides that, like I am going over for the Timberwolves with flying colors. I even think that they got better in the offseason.
Yeah. Next is New Orleans at 46 and a half. Last year they won 49. Where are you going for them this year?
This one's a hard one for me. Um, I'm gonna go under. I think okay, kind of the opposite argument of what we were talking about in the East, where we said somebody's got to get wins. I think in the West, somebody's going to have to get losses this year. I think uh, New Orleans is going to be a team that kind of falls victim to that. Um, New Orleans, like we were talking about, maybe last pod, maybe the pod before. I think it was the pod before, but we were talking about uh, the Pelicans starting lineup. Who are they going to put at the five? Is it Daniel Tice? Is it um, do they is it use Misi? Do they slide Zion to the five? Um, do they trade and get someone? If they trade and get someone, cool. But obviously, we can only consider what we see right now. Um, and so I just don't love it for the Pelicans. I think obviously adding DeJounte is going to be pretty good for them, but give me the under.
Yeah, I'm going under too. Like you said, I was taking a lot of overs here in the West, and someone's got to go under. And I can't really pick a team to go over if they don't really have a center. I don't love any of their options there at center. While I do think they are a great deep team at every other position, like having a starting lineup of DeJounte and Herb and Brandon Ingram and Zion, and then whoever they put at center. And then off the bench, you still have CJ McCollum and Trey Murphy. And that's great. Like, that's very deep. That's a solid six players that can start on anyone's team. It's just the problem is that hole they have at the five. So I don't know what their plans are there. Um, Based on what those plans could be, maybe my mind will change, but um, I just think they'll take a little hit because of um, frankly losing Valanciunas and Larry Nance. Just some size there. But next up is our team, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Their line's at 56 and a half. Last year we won 57 games, and I'm going to take the over. I think we got much better this offseason, adding Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein, and we're going to have some more support when Chet's off the court, and we're going to have pretty much no weaknesses in any lineups as far as I'm concerned. So I can't imagine getting worse from where we were last year. So
I'm going to agree and take the over. However, I want to reiterate a point that I made earlier that just because, you and I both agree, and I think most people would, that the Thunder got better this offseason, I think that it's important to reiterate that just because a team gets better doesn't not necessarily mean that's going to reflect in more wins. So, as a Thunder fan, I would say to temper your expectations as far as win total goes. Don't freak out if the Thunder end up with 55 wins or 54 wins because it's extremely difficult for any team to eclipse 50 wins in the West this season, and that would be a huge accomplishment. So I'm going to take the over just because for all the reasons that you mentioned. I think the Thunder got extremely better. However, it's not impossible for me to imagine a world that the under hits.
yeah. Okay, next up is Phoenix. I touched on them earlier. I took their over 47 and a half. Last year they won 49. So I don't see them taking a hit after improving in their point guard position.
Uh, they improved, I agree, but they're going to be one of the teams that fall victim to uh, somebody needing to lose and the West being better. So I'm going to take their under. I don't think that it's going to be much. Like it could be 46, it could be 45, it could be 47 even, but I'm going to take their under.
Okay. Portland, 22 and a half. Last year they won 21. I'm going to take their under just because there aren't a lot of bad teams out west, and they're kind of it. As far as really bad teams that don't really have any like guys that you would even consider a star on their team. And now Utah's down there, but I think Utah managed to win a few more games than Portland just because of marketing and things like that. But Portland, I don't really believe in their young core that much. I don't really. I mean, they have some vets, but not really. They don't have a team built that like you would want to win games really. I'm gonna take that under.
I am going to agree completely with the under. I think they're slated as like when you look at all these over-unders, Portland 22 and a half. That is the lowest under or over under in the West by 7 games. So I think they're going to be the worst team in the West. We'll get to that later, but I think they're going to be the worst team in the West. But like you mentioned, all of these other teams, like we're talking about, maybe besides like Utah, they're going to be solid opponents. Like I don't really see Portland. Like this is probably my most confident under on this whole sheet, despite my very passionate argument against the Memphis Grizzlies. But I think that Portland is going to hit the under by a considerable margin. I think Portland is going to be in the teens.
All right. Next up, Sacramento. 46 and a half is their line. Last year they won 46. I'm gonna go with a slight over. Adding DeMar DeRozan, I think will just get them a couple extra games there. And they did struggle with health down the stretch too, some losing Monk and Herter for a while. And if those guys are back and DeRozan will come in and help them win some more games, I think it always helps to add another piece like that, whether people think it's the best fit or not. I think it's just a move that they kind of had to do something to improve, and I think that'll get them a couple extra games.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think Sacramento got better this offseason. I think a lot of teams in the West, as we've mentioned, have as well. So I'm gonna take the over, but slightly, just like you said.
Yep. And then San Antonio, their line is at a 36 and a half. Last year they won 22 games. I'm gonna go with the under by far. I think this is a really high line for them. I know people want to just put Wimby as a favorite on everything and boost his team's win-loss total and everything like that, but I just don't think they're there yet. I know they're at bringing in some vets like Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes, but I don't think they're at the point in their careers to help them win a lot of games. Um, their young guys are not ready, and I mean, 37 games would get them near a play-in, and like for years past. So I can't imagine them winning that much. And yeah, what do you think?
I think San Antonio is going to be an amazing team a few years from now. I think next season they're not going to be really anywhere near 36 and a half. I think they're going to be well under um like I think they'll probably be in the 20s. I would be impressed to see them even eclipse 30. So I'm going to take their under for the exact same reasons that you said.
Right. And then Utah's last at 29 and a half. Last year they won 31. So what'd you go with for this year?
Utah is going to be under. Um, it's this one's another one that I would be willing to take to the bank because, like, I mean, this is our 30th team that we've covered. So a lot of these reasons we've said 30 times. But competitive West, they're really one of the only other teams that you could probably guarantee is not going to be in the competitive conversation. So I think 29.5 is pretty high for them. Especially like you look at last year for the Jazz, 31 wins. A lot of those came pre-trade deadline. And then they realized, oh, we don't really want to win. And so they lost a ton in a row. And as Thunder fans, we kind of followed that because we had their pick. It was top 10 protected. And so they kind of uh regressed to fall under that so that they could keep their own pick. So I think next year they're going to be even worse.
Right. This line's just a game and a half below what they won last year, and most of last year they were actually seemed like they were trying and they were doing well, like you said, and um, they since the trade deadline they have dumped a lot of their solid experienced players that have helped them win games in the past, and so because of that, it shows me they're ready to try to lose more and they don't have the pieces to make them be able to win, even if they wanted to. So I think they're a few years away, and they are kind of aiming for a higher pick this year. So I'm going to go with their under. So that wraps up our over unders. Um, it'll be fun to look back towards the end of the season and see where we landed on not only that, but all the predictions we're going to be making. Next up, we're going to predict the team standings for the East and the West. Now we'll go through this quicker because we just talked about every team and how we feel about how they're going to do. So we don't need to get into that again. But we're just going to go through. We'll start with the East again. We'll start at the bottom. So we'll each say our 15th ranked team and 14, 13, and move our way up from there. And so we'll just say who we predict to be at each spot and kind of compare what we have. And then we'll check back in at the end of the year. So for my Eastern Conference 15 slot, I have the Brooklyn Nets as the worst team in the East.
I have the Brooklyn Nets as well as the 15th seed in the East.
Yeah, I just think they want Cooper Flag. So next up, 14, I have the Washington Wizards.
14, I also have the Washington Wizards.
All right. Do you have the Detroit Pistons at 13?
I also have the Detroit Pistons at 13.
Wow. We made these lists on our own, guys. I promise. Um, number 12, I have the Chicago Bulls.
Okay, here we go. At number 12, I have the Charlotte Hornets,
Okay.
which for reasons that I stated earlier, kind of for the same reasons you talked about the Pistons being so low. It's been a while since I've seen the Hornets do anything, and so I've kind of got to see it to believe it.
Yeah, I have the Hornets at 11, so not too far off there. Who is your 11?
At 11, I have the Raptors.
All right. So I had the Raptors at 10. I kind of talked about them earlier. I had to put one of these teams that I don't think are going to be very good in the play-in, which was when I was looking at these teams, Raptors, Hornets, Bulls, Pistons, Wizards, Nets, I was like, I have to put one of these in the play-in. But I said earlier, like the Raptors have some respectable pieces like quickly and Barrett and Barnes that I think can kind of get them to the play-in. Unlike some of these other teams that don't have as many solid pieces. Who'd you have at 10?
At 10, I have the Chicago Bulls.
Wow. Giddy to the play-in.
Yes, love it.
All right. My 9 was the Atlanta Hawks.
My 9 is also the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay. Then I have 8, the Miami Heat.
I also have 8 as the Miami Heat. However, I'd like to mention my 9-10 matchup is the Hawks Bulls, which I believe it would be the third time in a row that they play at the 9-10 matchup.
Yeah. Let's see it again.
Yeah.
The Heat seem like the very middle team for me. Like when I was making these rankings, I was like, oh wow, the top seven, they're all really solid. I think they're all going to be do well this year, and they really want to win, and they have the pieces to do that. And you could really organize those seven in a lot of ways. And then I was like, wow, the bottom seven are really bad. I don't think even two of them deserve to make the play in, and they all kind of seem like lottery teams. And then I'm like, well, that leaves the Heat there in the middle as not really in either category.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and that's exactly why I have them in the same spot because they just don't really belong in the contenders or the bottom feeders. So,
Right.
uh,
But we've said that about the Heat before, and then they surprise us. So
yeah,
they're
then they
going
make
to
the
the playoffs.
finals.
So we'll see what happens. In the seven, I have the Orlando Magic.
I also have the Orlando Magic as my seven.
Seems kind of weird to have them in the play-in, but like I said, one of those seven had to be, and I just want to see more offense from them before I have them any higher.
Yeah, I mean, I think the top of the East is going to be really competitive, so I
Right,
think it's really anybody's game up there.
right. Six, I have the Cavs.
Six, I have the Bucks.
Oh wow,
Which
okay,
this might be a little bit of a shocker, I figured, but um, this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what I think about the Bucks. This more so has everything to do with what I think about the Celtics, Knicks, 76ers, Pacers, Cavs. I think all five of those teams um, are going to be better than the Bucks,
okay. Who'd you have
and
at five?
that's the reason that I have the Bucks at six. For five, I have the Cavs,
Okay,
um, which they were five last year. Um, so, I mean, they're bringing back the same roster. As I mentioned earlier, they dealt with health issues. So maybe this year they can be a little bit better and more healthy, but I don't see them better than the top four seeds. What about you?
yeah, I have the Pacers at five because I had the Cavs at six. So I I mean, I was going back and forth on a lot of these teams in this range. I think they'll all be very close. I mean, a lot of times standings come down to the very last day, so it doesn't even mean that one team's better than another. So it's like one win often separates a lot of these middle of the pack teams, but we'll see.
Oh yeah, I mean, we saw the Mavericks came out of that 4-5 matchup and went to the finals. So anybody's game.
The four, I had the Bucks then.
Or I have the Pacers. So
Okay.
it looks like we have the top three as the same teams at least. We'll see the order.
Right. Mine went Celtics, Knicks, Sixers, one, two, three.
Mine also goes Celtics, Knicks, Sixers, one, two, three.
Yeah. No, Celtics obviously the champs, and then Knicks and Sixers had big off seasons, so I expected a lot out of them. So
Now, I one thing I want to touch on with these predictions for me is me having the 76ers at three is considering that or is assuming that they have a healthy season. Like if they don't, like I could see them falling below, the competitive teams that we were talking about. There's seven competitive teams, so I could see them getting seventh or maybe even falling below the Heat if they aren't healthy. And I mean, we even saw that last season how they were doing wonderful. They were playing wonderfully, and then they lost Embiid, and suddenly at the very end of the season fell to the seventh seed. So
right.
um, I mean, it could be another case of that. The Eastern Conference last year was so up in the air up until the final day of the regular season. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to the West. Um, at the bottom of the West, I had the Trailblazers.
I have the Grizzlies. I'm kidding. I don't have the Grizzlies. I have the Trailblazers as well.
All right. And then I have the Jazz.
I have the Jazz as well.
I think that's a pretty consensus bottom two for most people. And those are kind of the two that seem to be trying to really lose.
Yeah. Here's an opinion I have about the Jazz and the Blazers is they're very interesting tanking rosters because I feel like for example, the Blazers have like Jeremy Grant and other players that aren't necessarily coming to mind right now, but or I mean they have
Yeah.
yeah, Avdia, Robert Williams.
Ayton.
Aiton, and the Jazz have people like Markkanen, Sexton, um, so and others too for the Jazz. But so it's just I don't like I think that those are going to be the worst two teams for sure. But I don't really think either of those teams have fully committed to the tank. So I right now I have the Blazers at 15 and the Jazz at 14. But I mean, I think that those could be flip-flop just depending on who wants to lose the most, like who commits to the tank, because Markkanen's going to win you some games.
Yeah.
Um, Sexton's going to win you some games. Jeremy Grant's going to win you some games. Um, so it's going to be who wants to lose the most. It's going to be an absolute toilet bowl down there for 14, 15.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about tanking is these days, like we're at the peak of the NBA. Like the best teams are better than they ever have been. There's more of the really good teams than there ever have been, and there's more good players around the league than there ever have been. So I think the the good players have to go somewhere, which kind of forces good players to even be on the bottom of the league's teams. And so that's why the Jazz and the Blazers and I mean, you can even make arguments that the Bulls, Pistons, Wizards, Nets, Hornets, Raptors, those teams have solid players on their teams. Like there aren't really ever going to be teams that just don't have anybody. Like looking at the Jazz and Blazers rosters, they don't look absolutely terrible on paper. Um, like
Right.
I think if you plop those teams in the league 20 years ago, like they could be the 8 seed maybe. But it's just so interesting that like you can have solid players on your team and still not be considered a great team just because you don't have multiple stars on your team like so many of these deep teams do, especially in the West. So
They need to like I think it's funny because when you consider the Thunder's prime tanking seasons, when you look at playing six players some of those games and
right.
playing these players 45 minutes
I mean,
instead.
even then we had Shea on our roster and like Al Horford on our roster and
Right. It
like
was
sometimes you just gotta shut your guys down if you want to win games. So because like
exactly
how the salary cap is these days, it's like you have to pay guys $100 million, but like and also guys like Tobias Harris, they have to sign somewhere. And
right.
the Pistons had money, so it's like that was kind of one of the only options of a team that was going to give him that money and stuff like that. So these teams have to spend their money and get solid players on their team, even if they want to be bad. So
Yeah. So yeah, they're gonna have to maybe send some people to Cancun a little early and pull the starters a bit, but
yeah,
uh it'll be an interesting tank for those bottom three seeds this season with all of the uh teams in the East that could maybe be bad with the Jazz and the Blazers in the mix. That'll be interesting. But it's just funny that like when the Thunder were in their prime tank, it was kind of still hard to get in that bottom three.
right. Okay, 13, I had the Spurs.
13, I also have the Spurs.
12, I had the Clippers.
Woo! That's
Did
a
you not?
no, I don't, which I woofed at that, but I don't really think that's too far off from what I have. I have 12 as the Rockets.
Yeah, I had Rockets at 11.
I have Pelicans at 11.
Whoa! Whoa! Wow!
Yep.
Oh, wow. I disagree. I'll just say that.
Well,
Wow.
I
I wonder how CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and all those guys feel about being projected 11th. But
do you think that they're listening?
maybe. But I just can't. Wow. Wow. Okay. 11. Yeah, I had the Rockets. And then here we go with the play-in. I had the Warriors at 10.
I have the Clippers at 10.
Okay. And then I have the Lakers at 9.
Whoa! I have the Warriors at 9.
Okay. I have the Kings at 8.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
What?
Whoa! Whoa!
What? Am I far off on the Kings?
No, 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 no. No. I'm not necessarily woeing your
You
Lakers.
haven't heard me say Pelicans yet.
That's exactly why I'm woeing.
You think the poopy Pelicans, you think they're just
Yes, I
bad, don't you?
now here's one thing that I might be considering that you may be looking at a little bit differently. I am taking the Pelicans as is right now with how healthy Zion has been the past few seasons.
Okay,
Like
then Trey Murphy comes off the bench and he's in that spot.
if you match up the Pelicans and the Kings in a 7-game series,
Are we
the
talking a 7 game series or a
no,
82
no,
game season?
no. But this is me using this to see who's better than the other. I'm saying if you match those two teams up, they the Kings are going to win in 5.
You're entitled to your opinion.
Zion is, I mean, when's the last time he's played a I'm not even giving him a full 82 because that's unrealistic
He was
expectation.
he was healthy last year.
Um,
I don't know
yeah,
how healthy, but
like
I mean, let's see. Last year
give me the stats on this because I don't have this on hand.
he played 70 last year.
Okay, which got them to the 8th seed. And I
And
think that they're going
they
to give you
added
those.
DeJounte.
Oh, they did add Dejounte. Yeah, okay. They added DeJounte. I think that they are going to get walloped on the interior.
Walloped.
Yep, I'm
I
pulling that.
mean, I just don't think they're gonna go into the season with no plan at center. I just think they're gonna figure something out.
Can we make a side bet right now about who we think is going to finish higher, Lakers or Pelicans? Are
You
you
have.
confident?
Who'd you have?
That is my main woe here. I guess the Kings too was my main woe. But
Just wait till you hear where I have the Pelicans.
yeah, are you gonna have them number one?
They're
Yeah,
at
like
7. They're at
you're,
7.
you're like the Pelicans are my NBA champion. I'm like, geez.
Yep,
Uh,
they're at 7.
okay. I would like to make you a bet right now,
Yeah.
and you can pick. Do you want to bet against the Lakers or the Pelicans finishing higher than the Lakers or the Kings? You get to pick.
Can I just say Pels will be top 8?
Um,
And you think they won't be?
that's not necessarily my argument. My argument is that they won't finish higher than the Lakers or the Kings.
Okay. I'll bet you that they'll finish above them both.
Deal. What's on the line?
$5.
$5. Boom. Here, let
Oh,
me let me write this down.
all right.
Jack bets Pelicans will finish higher, and this is at the end of 82 games. This is yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
than both the
Let me just
Kings
ask
and
you this. Is Brandon Ingram a top 30 player in the league?
I don't have a list of players in the
Okay.
league.
Is he top 50?
Yeah, probably
Zion, is he top 30?
when healthy.
Is Herb Jones a top 75 player? Probably. Is CJ McCollum a top 75 player? Yes. Is Trey
No,
Murphy? It's
Trey.
CJ Trey Murphy. Yes.
Um,
DeJounte.
Dejounte, yes.
How many top 100 players do the Kings have?
Um,
Fox, DeRozan, Sabonis.
Let me pull out a.
Like the Pelicans have 6 that are top 100 locks. The Kings have 3. You want to put
Keegan
Malik
Murray.
Monk in there?
I would put Keegan Murray in that conversation.
Okay, that's fair.
And I would also put Malik Monk in that conversation. So if we're arguing five versus potentially five versus potentially six here, I don't see it being too different. But I also think that uh I guess we're not looking at a direct matchup. But then like you're betting against both the Lakers and the Kings. I think when you look at the Lakers roster, I think that they have the best two players in that conversation. Um, I don't
I
necessarily
think it falls off pretty heavily after that, though, for them.
right. I would agree with that. I wouldn't argue that the Lakers have more players in the top 75 for sure, but um, I think that they're going to end up being a better team. All right, I have that bet documented. Friendly wager for $5 live on the pod.
All
Uh,
right.
let's get
Uh,
back on track.
yeah. Recap. Tell me your 7, 8, 9, 10.
Have we even got I don't even think we've gotten to
Well, 7, I have the Pelicans. Who's your 7?
I don't think we even said eight.
Oh, 8, I have the Kings.
Kings. Oh yeah, because that's where I woed you.
Okay.
Okay. So eight, I have the Suns.
Whoa. Are we serious?
We're serious.
Whoa. That's crazy. Why do you think the Suns are so low? Why do you think they're 2 spots lower than they were last year?
I honestly think that our fundamental disagreement here is how high we value the Kings. Because and the Lakers. I think our fundamental disagreement here is where we value the Kings and the Lakers because when I think about okay, and like I think you can agree with this. I don't think the Suns are going to be higher than the top teams in the West like the Thunder, the Timberwolves, the Mavs, the Nuggets. Maybe we don't agree on that. Okay, but let's just say I don't think they're going to be higher than the Thunder or the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Now, I'll speak for myself here, where I don't think they also are going to be higher than the Mavericks or the Nuggets. Now, I also wouldn't say that they're going to be higher than the Grizzlies or the Kings or the Lakers. I think those are all going to be. I'm not going to call it the Lakers extremely competitive because they haven't been in past years. I think they'll be a play-in team, but I think the top of the West is going to be extremely competitive, and I don't necessarily think the Suns are just going to mosey their way into that conversation just because they added Tyus Jones. I think that the
Um,
Suns have at the top of their roster have more firepower than hardly anybody in the league, and that's indisputable. But
they had 49 wins last year, and they got better.
well, I don't think getting better always reflects in more wins, and they're going to be a victim of that.
I just, I know a lot of people last year didn't think they were very good, and they were barely all healthy at the same time ever all year. All their guys missed a big amount of time, and they added pieces to make them better this offseason. So um, I think they're going to be a lot better than people think they're going to be this year because they still got 49 wins last year, and I don't see a way they're under that this year, but we'll see.
Well, I guess that this is just the foundation of disagreeing, but I was gonna say, well, I do see that they get under that, so I guess we will have to see on the Suns. However, I will say as a note that I'm not as confident in that as I would be uh other things.
Okay.
I think that the Suns could be a top you know, last season at the beginning of last season, who would have said that the Timberwolves would have jumped like all the way up to the top? They were projected to be in the play-in, or even the Thunder, for example. So I think the Suns could exceed my expectations.
Yeah. So you had Suns at 8. I had Kings at 8. Then I had Pels at 7. Who'd you have at 7?
Lakers at 7.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, I don't think that they're going to be like extremely good, but I think a LeBron and Anthony Davis team, uh they can be really good if they try to be good. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Who do you have at six?
6, I have the Grizzlies.
Me too.
So
We agree on the Grizzlies there.
now it's not for the John Conchar being amazing or Mamadi Diakite being six man of the year like you think.
I
Um,
didn't say that. I didn't say
but no, I think the Grizzlies are going to be good. Despite me hating on them on the over-unders, I think that their starting lineup and their top four on their roster is going to be good enough to get them higher than the play-in.
that. Okay. Well, I guess we can find some middle ground on the Grizzlies, and we both have them at six there, despite thinking they may be a little different in win totals. But um, next up, I have the Suns at five. And let me
Okay.
tell you, I had them at three, but I brought them down a little bit. But I'm high on the Suns. We've had this conversation, but who'd you have at five?
I have the Kings at 5. I'm high on the Kings.
Oh,
So, and I guess, um, you know, we've talked about how high I am on the Kings. I'm not necessarily, uh, I don't think that they're going to be like a competitor to win it all. I don't think that.
right.
Um, I think they're simply going to be good. Um, Not great.
Okay.
Uh, I could even switch them and the Grizzlies, honestly. But I think I am eager to see how the DeMar DeRozan fits in. I like the Kings' depth. Um, I like their. I think the thing that I like the most about the Kings is their play style. They've got a great interior scorer in Sabonis, and they've got shooters to space the floor around him, like Keegan Murray, etc. I love Malik Monk. De'Aaron Fox is awesome. I think they on paper they have everything that it could take to get to the 5 seed, and that's why I got them so high.
All right. Then I have the Mavericks at four.
I have the Nuggets at 4.
Okay. I don't have a strong opinion on Nuggets versus Mavericks, but I had the Nuggets at three.
Yeah, I also don't have a strong opinion on Nuggets Mavs. I have the Mavs at 3. I think I think that that could be close. And honestly, with the top four in the West, I think it's anybody's game. Like we saw at the last day of the season with in the West, the Thunder could have been the 1 seed or they could have been the 3 seed. So um, it's anybody's game in the West. But I chose the Mavs over the Nuggets, um, just because I think the Mavs are going to just be better than they were last season, just based on experience. I thought that they were incredible in the playoffs. I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch them in this regular season.
All right. Then I had Timberwolves two, Thunder one.
I agree with that. Now, I don't feel strongly about that either.
Right. And it's just regular season. I mean, anything can happen, but I'm not gonna pick against the Thunder, so why not?
That's exactly why I went with the Thunder at 1, just because I was just gonna be hopeful.
Right.
But it's not the end of the world if the Thunder at the 4 seed or the 3 seed. Um, I obviously I think if the Thunder get the 4 seed, for example, I don't think that that's necessarily like I don't think we're jumping for joy. However, I think in a super competitive West, I mean, we saw, like I mentioned earlier, we saw the Mavs get out of that 4-5 matchup and go to the finals. So, um, not all hope is lost if the Thunder fall that low.
Right. Okay, we're gonna quickly go through the playoffs. We predicted the playoff bracket. Now, this doesn't hold a lot of weight because this is just based off of our standings that we made. And so we could have the bracket itself wrong. So therefore our playoff picks would be wrong. But it'll just be fun to look back at either way and just kind of say what we think. So we're going to start out with the play in the East. So the 7-8 winner is so in my case, that would be the Magic versus the Heat. So I have the Magic in that game.
Mine is also the Magic and the Heat, and I also have the Magic winning that game.
Okay, and then the 9-10 winner. Um, So because we both have the Magic, that means we'll have the Magic as the 7 seed playing our 2 seed. But then the 9-10 winner, in my case, that's Hawks Raptors, and I picked the Raptors.
So mine's Hawks Bulls, and I'm going to take the Hawks.
All right. And then winner of this game. So the 7-8 loser against the 9-10 winner. So in my case, that will be Heat versus um Raptors. And I'm gonna take the Heat there. So that'll be my 8 seed in the playoffs.
So mine is the Heat versus the Hawks, and I'm going to also take the Heat.
All right. And then our 1-8 series winner, mine will be Celtics Heat. I picked the Celtics.
Mine's also going to be Celtics Heat, and would that be the third time in a row that they've played as the 1-8?
I believe so. Or no, the Heat played the Bucks 2 years ago
Oh,
and
okay.
won
Yeah,
that.
that's
Beat them.
that's right. It would be the second year in a row, and I'm going to take the Celtics.
Yeah. 2-7. So that'll be Knicks, Magic. And I'm gonna take the Knicks probably in a closer series. I mean, maybe six, but
I would take. Oh yeah, I actually do think that it might be fun just to kind of mention what we think the series might go to. So I
yeah.
think
Celtics in four, Knicks in six.
I would agree Celtics in four, and I'm going to take the Knicks over the Magic, and I would take them in uh, six.
All right, my 3-6. So that's Sixers, Cavs. I got the Sixers in six.
Let's see. My 3-6 is the Sixers Bucks, and I would take the Sixers in 6 or 7. It would be a good series.
All right, 4-5 series. So mine's Bucks Pacers, a rematch of last year's 3-6. I got the Bucks in seven this time.
My 4-5 would be Pacers Cavs, and I would take the Pacers in 7. That would be a crazy series too, I think. Now, I think I was a lot higher on the Cavs last year too. Like uh I was really high on the Cavs last year, and like going into the playoffs, I thought that they were going to beat the Magic. Um and they really, really didn't show up. I know that there was injury questions with Jared Allen being out and stuff, but I'm gonna take the Pacers here in a good series. But like that's counting the Cavaliers as like showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, on to our conference semifinals. Um, I have the Celtics over the Bucks in six, and the Sixers over the Knicks in seven.
I have the Celtics over the Pacers. We'll call it 6. I have the Knicks over the Sixers. Let's call that 7.
All right, and in my Eastern Conference Championship, I have the Celtics over the Sixers in six.
I've got the Knicks over the Celtics in
Oh,
uh 6 or 7. I think, and I would like to provide some explanation for that because obviously the Celtics are a heavy favorite to win the East going into this season coming off of their championship. I just really like the way this Knicks roster is built, especially defensively. Um, and I mean also undeniably great offensive players like Brunson, DiVincenzo, even Randall's got a good offensive game, and oh, Anunoby can shoot. So I think the combination of good defense and or good offense and great defense is going to be able to put up a fight against the Celtics, and I'm going to take the Knicks coming out on top. Um, and I think the name of the game for me is going to be depth. Um, I think the Celtics have just as good of a starting lineup, if not better. But I don't see the Celtics being um deep enough to overcome the Knicks in my prediction. I think I don't feel strongly about that.
yeah. Okay. Let's move out west. So you have the Knicks out of the East, I have the Celtics, but we'll start with the play-in here in the West. In the 7-8 matchup, mine is Pelicans Kings, and I'll take the Pelicans in that matchup.
Oh, you will.
Yes,
Uh,
the great Pelicans.
yeah, the champion Pelicans. Okay, my 7-8 is Lakers Suns, and I'm sorry, but the Lakers are gonna beat your Suns.
Wow. Okay. That's bold. And then the 9-10 winner for me, that's Lakers Warriors again, and I'll take the Lakers.
Mine is Warriors Clippers, which would be a fun play-in matchup. And for Thunder fans, we'd be cheering hard for the Warriors, and I'm gonna take them here.
Yeah. Um, so then in that final play-in game, the 7-8 loser versus the 9-10 winner. For me, that would be Kings Lakers. I'm gonna take the Lakers. LeBron gets it done to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, it seems like a recurring theme in the LeBron just kind of willing his team towards playoff time. Um, my final play-in matchup is the Suns versus the Warriors, and I'm going to take the Suns here.
Yeah. And then in the 1-8 series, so for me, that is Thunder Lakers. That would be a fun one, but I think our Thunder get it done in six.
My matchup is the Thunder and let's see, it would be Thunder Suns. Uh-oh. Our Thunder versus your Suns.
No, no, no. It's
Um,
still my Thunder.
um, no, I'm kidding. I think the Thunder are going to win here. Trying to decide what I think the series would be. I'll take Thunder in 6.
Okay.
I think Kevin Durant probably wins them 2 games.
All right. Next is a 2-7 series. For me, that's Timberwolves Pelicans. I got the Wolves in six.
Side note, I think the Wolves, if the Wolves played the Pelicans in a 7 game series, I would take the Wolves in 4. No, nobody that the Pelicans have in the front court is competing with Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. But that's a side
I've made my reasons clear why.
note.
The
Why
Pelicans
you
are great.
why you are a Pelicans super fan. Uh, all right, my matchup is Timberwolves, Lakers, which is a rematch um, from last year, and I think we're gonna see the same
Wait,
result.
the Timberwolves didn't play the Lakers last year.
Who played the Lakers in the first round?
The Nuggets.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, that because the Timberwolves played the Suns, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, Timberwolves, Lakers, the non-rematch of Timberwolves Lakers. I think um I think we'd see Timberwolves win the series for sure. Give me 5 games actually.
Okay. Next up, 3-6 matchup. For me, that is Nuggets Grizzlies. I have the Grizzlies in seven. Boom.
Grizz over the Nugs.
Grizz over the Nugs in seven. How you like that?
I actually like that
Okay.
in that matchup because I think the Grizzlies can be kind of a bad matchup for the Nuggets, honestly.
Yep.
Um, uh, let's see. My matchup is the Mavericks and the Grizzlies. I'm going to take the Mavericks in 7.
Okay.
Uh, I don't think that that's a given, just because I think that the Grizzlies, if healthy, can be sneaky good. I'm going to take the Mavericks based on depth alone, despite all of your sixth man of the year contenders on the Grizzlies.
Okay. 4-5 series. For me, that is Mavericks Suns. I have the Suns in seven. They're getting their revenge
Whoa.
against the Mavs.
Whoa.
The Mavs beat them in seven a couple years ago. I think it is um yeah, we're gonna see a little fun upset in the first round there.
All right. Uh, all right. Shall I go to mine or uh would you like comment on that?
Go to yours.
Yeah, we'll move on. Um, um Nuggets Kings. I'm gonna take the Nuggets in 7 or 6. 6 or 7. Um, hard to bet against Jokic. I think the Kings are gonna be a good opponent, but it's hard to bet against Jokic.
Yeah. Okay. Conference semis. I have the Thunder over the Suns in six, and the Wolves over the Grizzlies in six.
I have the Thunder over the Nuggets in 6. I have the Timberwolves over the Mavs. That would be, I guess, a conference finals rematch, um, if I'm remembering my playoffs correctly now, since I forgot.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and so I think the Timberwolves are actually going to get revenge on the Mavs. No other reason besides I thought that they would win this last year, and they didn't. And so but for some reason, I just don't really think my thought has changed on that. I still think that they're the better team. So I think that they're going to come out of that.
All right. Western Conference Championship. I got the Thunder over the Wolves in seven. I think these teams are viewed by many as the two contending favorites in the West. So I think they're going to match up, and it'll be a great series, and the Thunder will advance to the finals.
Before I get to my conference finals matchup, I'd like to comment on my conference semifinals, Thunder over Nuggets. I forgot to say this, but last year the Thunder won the season series against the Nuggets. Um, but I still don't think that the Nuggets were like a great matchup for us. Like, even though we did win the season series, cool. But like Jokic, kind of exploited Chet at times just because Jokic is such a big body. It's so hard to defend him. MVP, he's very good. But now the flexibility with Hartenstein on this roster, I mean, it improves this matchup for the Thunder so much. Being like, because at times, I mean, Jack, you and I were there at the first home game of the season when we played the Nuggets, and man, Jokic could have anything he wanted in the paint. He was eating, and what do we have to do? We had to put J Will in there to try to slow him down. And J Will, with all respect to J Will, he's not necessarily on the same defensive level as Hartenstein is. And so I just think the Thunder look so much better in that matchup this year. And like I said, we won the season series, cool, but we look so much better in that matchup this year than last year. So that's really exciting. Um, okay, in the Thunder Timberwolves matchup, I'm gonna go with the Thunder in 7, 6 or 7, just like you said. But um, my reason that the Thunder are gonna pull that out is I'm just gonna say defense and depth. However, I think the Timberwolves are another great defensive and depth team. That's why I think that the series would probably go to 7. Um, I would just bet with the Thunder that the Thunder are going to win that, having the best player on the floor.
All right. And then my NBA championship, I have the Thunder over the Celtics in seven. And the reason I picked that is because I really want it to happen. And I think we're a great team. So I'm not going to pick against us.
I also am a little bit of a Thunder homer and have the Thunder over the Knicks. However, if I would have picked the Thunder to win the championship last year, you would have gone, come on, man. Like, let's not just go Thunder because we're Thunder fans. Where this year it's exciting because we're picking the Thunder, yet it's actually kind of a realistic pick. So I don't necessarily feel strongly that the Thunder would overcome the Knicks in a series. I think that it's very possible, but I also don't feel strongly that the Knicks would beat the Thunder. So like that's why I do take the Thunder. I would take them in 7. I think the Knicks are going to be a great team. And if we face the Celtics in the finals, I think that they're a great team. But I think the Thunder have all the tools to get it done, and that's why I pick them as my champion. I'm excited to see this season.
Me too. And that wraps it up for our predictions for today. We'll get into more predictions later in the week. So that was fun. It'll be cool to see how we did on all of that. Do you want to get into our player rankings for today or just do extra tomorrow?
Yeah, we can, because I
It's
think
up to
we're
you.
near.
We've been going a while, but I mean, we can run through them quickly or we can just do extra next time.
Let's go ahead and run through them
Okay.
because I think um let's let me save my predictions. Um, we might back ourselves up into a even longer episode tomorrow if we just save them.
Okay. Let me share my screen. We'll just go through this quick. I don't think this will take too long. Um, a little longer pod never hurt nobody. Okay, here we go. Thunder rankings, Thunder player rankings. If you haven't been with us before, at the end of every episode, we rank a group of players based on these 5 categories: stats, impact on winning, personal opinion, longevity, and culture. We rank them 1 to 10, and then we'll have an average score of all 5 categories. And then by the end of this, we will have every Thunder player ranked from best to worst of all time. So today we're going over all the players that played for us in the 2017-2018 season, but didn't play for us any later than that. Um, well, you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, Carmelo Anthony played 1 season, 78 games. It's actually kind of impressive that he played 78 games. Let's see. He scored 16.2 points, 5.8 rebounds, 1.3 assists. He shot 35% from three, 40% from the field. Those were actually pretty good stats to the naked eye. Can we scroll up to see kind of similar people? I don't want to. Okay, yeah, right there. You can go down a tad. Let's see. Yep. Let me scroll my
Well, this
finger.
is this is the points here.
Oh, yeah, I think I was actually missing that. I was going off of minutes, I
Oh
believe.
wait, this is point.
Oh, okay. Um, okay, right there. Let's see. Chet Holmgren. Sheesh. Am I giving Mel? Let's give him an. Uh, gosh, I don't
Oh,
really.
I mean, he doesn't have the block or rebound
Right, he
numbers.
doesn't have the blocks. It's kind of a hard range to put him in. Okay, maybe there was somebody that with 14 points.
Where's
I
that?
think that might. Uh, are
Right
those?
here. 6 for Al Horford.
Yeah, let's go 6.5 for Melo.
Okay.
That works. Because I don't. Yeah, when I looked at Holmgren at that high, I was like, no way do I feel anywhere near that confident about Melo. Um, impact on winning. From what I remember from Melo, he obviously impacted winning in some degree, but he was also kind of a liability on defense. So let me give him a 6. Personal opinion, he was fun. It was exciting when we got him. He seems like a fine guy. I don't necessarily think he was ever the best Thunder guy. Let me go with a 6 as well. Longevity, uh, what do we give somebody that plays a full season?
Oh, looks like Gallo had a 3.
Yeah, we can give him a 3. Culture, I think he was a good uh leader, probably a decent locker room guy. He wanted to come to Oklahoma City. He was like at that time was the biggest. I know it was a trade, but he had to waive his no trade clause. So it was kind of like signing a free agent. So that was pretty big for the culture. Let me go 7.
All right, that puts Melo at a 5.7 overall. Next is Corey Brewer. He played 18 games, 28.6 minutes, 10 points, 3.5 rebounds, 2 steals, 44 from the field, 34 from three. Um, Corey Brewer, he was not a guy you'd love to have starting on your playoff team at the small forward position, but we got him in the buyout market after Robertson went down to an injury, I believe. Um, that was a promising year, and it was great to bring him in to fill that void. But ultimately, it wasn't enough to move us into the second round of the playoffs. But as a guy that really we had were we were kind of forced to put him into a big role. He kind of um, exceeded expectations there. These stats are fine. I'll give him a 4.5. We kind of got to the point where we regarded him as a pretty important player just because of how much we had to play him because we didn't have a lot of other options at that wing position. Impact on winning, he played great defense for us and um, was a decent shooter. I'll give him a 4.5 there as well. Personal opinion, he was fine. I'm glad he could step in and contribute. I'll give him a 5. Longevity was not with us very long, but started when he was, so I'll give him a 1.5. And culture, I'm sure it was great to have a guy that's been around a little bit for that short amount of time. I'll give him a 5. So that brings him to a 4.1.
So PJ Dozier, he uh, probably known by most Thunder fans for wearing the number 35 after Kevin Durant left. He played 2 games, scored 1 point per game, um, 0.5 rebounds, no assists, no steals, no blocks. Let's give him the like let's give him the Dante Grantham treatment. So let's copy and paste the Dante Grantham stats there.
All these here.
Yep,
All right. So
that works for me.
that'll give him a point 0.9. Um, though PJ Dozier got a bucket to fall, unlike Dante there. You want to give
That's
him a point 0.5 on stats?
yeah. For that bucket,
Okay.
he scores a 0.5.
Okay. Daniel Hamilton, similar situation. 6 games, 28 minutes, 2 points a game. Um, Not much else. I'll give him a 1 on stats. Impact on winning, zero point 0.5. Well, I'll give him a 1. Personal opinion, he's fine. I guess. I'm sure he's great as a person. 3. Longevity, barely was with us. 1. Culture, I'm sure he was nice. 4. That brings him to a 2.
All right. Next up, we got Dakari Johnson. He played 31 games for us. Um, he scored 1.8 points, 1.1 rebounds, and zero point 0.3 assists in his 31 games. Those stats are Dookie. Let's give him a 1. Impact on winning, another 1. Personal opinion of Dakari, I don't really have one. Let's go with a 3. Longevity, let's give him a 2. And culture, he's probably a fine culture guy. Let's give him a 5.
Okay, that puts him at a 2.4. Josh Hustis. He played 3 years, 76 games, 14 minutes a game, 2.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, shot 34 from the field, 31 from three. I mean, these are not great stats for playing that much. I will give him a 2. Impact on winning, he played a good amount, but he didn't do very well in that amount he played. I'll give him a 2.5. Personal opinion, I really like Josh Hustis. I was excited about him when he was on the team, and now I listen to him on the Athletic NBA show. And he seems great. He knows basketball. He's a fun guy to listen to. I'll give him a 6. Longevity, he was with us for 3 years. 76 games. Guys around that mark. Um, we can go with like a 4. Culture, he seemed like a really nice guy and everyone liked him. I'll give him a 6.5. So that puts him at a 4.2.
Yeah, I like Josh Eustace as well. He's Stanford guy.
Yeah.
Um, Kyle Singler, maybe a polarizing player for Thunder fans. He played 4 seasons for us, 138 games. He averaged 3.2 points, 1.8 rebounds, and zero point 0.4 assists. He shot 30% from three, 37% from the field. Um, his stats are horrible considering his contract. I think he's one of the only Thunder players that I have his contract memorized just because of how bad it was. He we signed him to a 5-year, $25 million extension back then, which it was crazy to to extend him when he hadn't proved anything. Like you're telling me we extended a guy that would go on to average 3.2 points, 1.8 rebounds, and zero point 0.4 assists. That is garbage. Uh let's give him uh 2. Impact on winning. Uh I mean, he did play a lot for us, and he played in seasons that we were very good. His impact was negligible, though. So, uh, that's that's just maybe being brutally honest, but I think that that's fair. Is that he really just didn't have much of an impact, um, on really either side of the ball. So, impact on winning, I'm gonna go. Let's give him a 2.5. I'll give him the Josh Eustace number, even though I actually like Josh Eustace on the court more than I liked Singler. Um, personal opinion of Josh. Okay, the personal opinion of Kyle. I mean, here's where I differ. Like, obviously, I'm really harsh about his play on the court, but I think that he's a great guy. He came back to Thunder Legacy Night. Got to see him in person, which was really cool. Um, I think he's one of the better guys that we've had in Oklahoma City, and we've had a lot of great guys. Um, so I for that reason, I'm gonna set the on court stuff aside, and I'm gonna give him a 6.5 for my personal opinion of him. Longevity, 4 years, 138 games, does deserve some longevity points. Let's go up to see somebody who's similar.
I mean, like a Poku had a 5.
Okay.
Baisley, 4.5. Around that range, 4.5 to 5.
Is Baisley at a 4.5 or is he at a 6? I can't tell if that's Trey Man or Bays.
6.
Okay, let's split the difference. Let's go 5.5. And then culture, I'm sure he's a fine, like good culture guy. Probably 6 is fair.
All right, that puts Singler at a 4.5. Last player for today, Nick Collison. Um, he played 14 seasons. I figured I'd include his Sonics years there as well, just because that I factor that into his loyalty to one single franchise. Over the years, he played 910 games. Um, he played 20 minutes a game, 6 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 53% from the field. A lot of that is probably lowered from his later years when he didn't play a whole lot. But yeah, Nick Collison, the only guy that the Thunder have retired his jersey. He now works for the Thunder in the front office as a scout. He's just seen by many as just a real loyal guy that's there for the culture, and he just was a great guy. These stats are nothing special, but I'm gonna give him a. I mean, in his early years, he was a solid contributing player. I'm going to give him a little benefit of the doubt just because these are probably a little tainted by his old years. I'm going to give him a 5 on these stats, and on an impact on winning, I'm going to give him a 4.5. Just because I think he impacted the team to win in a lot of different ways, whether it be in his early years as a solid role player or just being a guy that can train the guys and mentor them and have them look up to him. Personal opinion, longevity, and culture, I think, are all deserving of a 10 for Nick Collison. He's kind of the definition of a culture guy, which ultimately is why his number got lifted up into the rafters. Um, Also, he's a definition of a longevity guy, just being with the team for so long and sticking it out and being loyal with us for so long, even to this day when he's working for us. So that brings him to a 7.9, which I think is pretty deserving.
Yeah, he is absolutely well deserving of his nickname of Mr. Thunder. Um,
That's right.
yeah, love, love, love Nick Collison. So happy to be able to give him a rating today.
If
And if
you're
you're
listening,
watching,
if
Nick,
you're listening, Nick,
hit that like button, Nick. We could really use it. Thanks.
all right. So let's just go over these real quick, see where everyone ended up. All right. Nick Collison falls there at 8 between Chet and Chris Paul. Melo's there at 22 between Gallo and Abrinas. Singler at 36 between Tupat and Teo Maladone. And then Hustis and Corey Brewer are 43 and 44 between Spee and Bismack. Dakari Johnson at 70 between Mamadi and Gabby Deck. Hamilton at 77 between Kevin Hervey and Rob Edwards. PJ Dozier at 81 between Jawan Evans and Dante Grantham. So I think those are all pretty fair ratings. We're excited to every step of the way brings us one step closer to having a full ranking of all the Thunder players from best to worst. So it's fun to see it coming together.
Absolutely. I think Singler ending up right by two Pat is pretty fitting.
Yeah, those all seem pretty fitting. So yeah, enjoyed that episode. I know it was a longer one, but we're excited to bring you guys more content later this week with the rest of our predictions and some more player rankings. So with that, we will see you later on this week. Thank you guys for listening.
See ya.